Welcome everyone. I'm recording this presentation for those who may have missed my session during the Asialink Sketchwalk and would like to know or learn more about the stories behind the perfect sketchbook. There was also a request for me to present this in Chinese for audiences who couldn't understand my original presentation that night. Perhaps with YouTube's auto-translate subtitles, this can better clarify what I presented, especially since it will take more than 6 minutes. Before I begin, I want to give a big shout out to the entire team in Penang. These are the volunteers you can see in this photo right here in these slides. They did an amazing job pulling this amazing event together. And here are the panelists who shared the stage with me during the 20 by 20 Pika Kucha session, where we each had 6 minutes to present 20 slides. All their presentation was really amazing and I had so much fun sharing the stage with them. I also want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who visited Le Art store during the event. Whether you stopped by to catch up, share your sketches, or just checked out what we were selling, it was super fun catching up with everyone. During the event, I also invited Madam Tia and James to demonstrate how they use our accordion sketchbook. James showcased his approach in capturing food, while Madam Tia demonstrated how she captured interesting texture and structure using our accordion sketchbook. I also gave a demonstration showing the difference between 120% cotton paper, discussing the techniques and material involved in painting with them. Now let's get back to the presentation slides from that night. Here I'm presenting the slides that I shared during the event. And the topic is actually from travel sketching to crowdfunding. How I actually went about creating the perfect sketchbook. As I've mentioned in many of my interviews, the name itself was a bit of a clickbait. While the intention was genuine, calling something perfect was a strategic move to grab attention during my crowdfunding campaign 10 years ago. Like many sketchers out there, I love traveling with my sketchbook. As I've improved my sketches and add more colors, I realize how important quality paper is for watercolor. Now, good quality paper allows the color to settle beautifully, the washes to be wetter, and I can feel the varying degree of moisture on quality con paper, something that I couldn't do on regular paper. So 10 years ago, there weren't any quality con paper sketchbook available. This was likely due to the expense of full con paper and the fact that sketchbook makers aren't artists themselves. I find it ironic that since artists rarely part with their sketchbook, it would make sense to invest in quality ones, considering they are our most precious possession. Cotton paper is a archival, meaning it lasts longer than mere acid-free paper. All these factors prompted me to start the Perfect Sketchbook initiative. And the reason to turn to crowdfunding was simple. I didn't have the money to make the sketchbook. And I learned about crowdfunding from Eric, my graduate school classmate who had success with it. After failing in various business ventures previously, I learned that money can easily taint friendship. With my background in design research, I believe that as a heavy user of sketchbook and painting materials, I could bring value to what I propose. Coincidentally, I was also motivated after traveling to Bhutan with Drukasia. More on that next time, but if you plan to travel to Bhutan, you should check these guys out. Even with my ideas in hand, I soon realized that Sketchbook lacks proprietary protection, making it difficult to compete with if other companies enter the market and compete solely on price. Therefore, I made it my goal to give as much as possible with the most minimum profit, hoping that backers or at least the community will appreciate my offering and give me a chance to make this book. When we first got funded, I increased the pages in our sketchbook by 20% as a thank you to our backers. That was my strategy, to give, and to give. Obviously, I needed a maker, so I approached a local manufacturer here in Singapore to collaborate on making a prototype and to manufacture the book if we got the funding. I created all the promotional materials, figured out the pricing, and launched on Kickstarter. only to realize that I wasn't eligible because 10 years ago, only Americans could use the platform. It took me a few years to work around this, but we finally managed to get on Kickstarter. And when I got on it, I was naive, thinking that if I could at least get a staff pick on Kickstarter, traffic will automatically come to my project. So I launched it and waited the entire night to see if anyone would discover it. Then I realized I was in for a rough journey. To make the first run of a tiny sketchbook, which was A6 by the way, I needed to raise about 50,000 US dollars, which translated to roughly about 1,000 backers at $25 each. Considering most people hadn't even heard of cotton paper back then and generally perceived Sketchbook to be cheap, it was costly to reach out and educate people about this project. Plus, I wasn't popular or famous, lacked clout, and had zero advertising budget. So what did I do? I resorted to cold calling and emailing anyone I thought had anything to do with sketching, painting, or the arts. If someone suggested me reaching out to anyone, I did it. As you can see from the chart, the initial support came from my friends, fellow sketchers from the Urban Sketching Singapore group, and some of my closest friends. And you can see the initial boost that the Singapore group has given to me in this long journey of hustle. From this chart, you can see how rough the journey of getting this tiny sketchbook funded was. In fact, it was only during the last 4 days of campaign that I managed to get it funded. Throughout the campaign, I faced numerous rejection, and I'm internally grateful for folks like James Gurney, Nathan Fowles, and Parker Block who agreed to feature my project on their platform. Their support extended our reach and allowed us to get the first sketchbook funded. I also can't thank my friends and mentor from Columbus College of Art enough, Charlotte and Mr. Harishi. Thank you for being so supportive and positive in my endeavor. And of course, Johnny and Drukasia for their tremendous support throughout the campaign. Now, I thought the challenge was over after hustling for 45 days to raise the fund. But I was so wrong. Right after we raised the money, everything from procurement to production had issues to resolve. When we finally reached the logistic and fulfillment stage, that was the most challenging part. I didn't have a car and my collaborator assigned a driver to help us deliver the packages to the nearest post office, only to be redirected back to the post office HQ. Over there, we had to manually sequence our packages so they could assign tracking numbers. Imagine packing boxes with numbers and handling them in the same order to the post officer so they could print out the correct sequence of stickers for tracking. It was a tedious process, but one we couldn't afford to skip given how expensive each book was to make and to deliver. Anyhow, right after the first Kickstarter, I was relieved to have fulfilled the project and had no intention of continuing it. However, the name Perfect Sketchbook bugged me, and I thought there might be an opportunity to truly perfect it, creating something no artist could refuse if gifted with one. So to achieve that, I decided to retain the darker edges of fine watercolor paper and hand tear the pages to match that aesthetic. Based on previous feedback, I also decided to make it a much bigger sketchbook and convinced my maker to provide customizable features such as stamping the artist's name on the front page of the sketchbook. Now the project was an instant hit, and the second crowdfunding campaign was completed within 2 to 3 days on Indiegogo. Since I couldn't sustain the project long term, I wanted to end it on a high note by celebrating the support I received from backers. My past collaborator loved the idea of me promoting their brand while raising money to make the sketchbook. However, by this time I had completely exhausted myself. I thought what makes a sketchbook perfect is ultimately the artist and the art. So I decided to host a show titled Interlace, where I celebrated the art from some of my best and most important artists from around the world. To make this show happen, we also invited some of Singapore's most prominent art collectors, hoping that the art sold would cover the expense. And it did. This was my way of giving back to the community. I stopped the project entirely after that, took on a teaching gig in Hong Kong and moved out of Singapore. This is where something interesting happened after that. A year after I quit the project, Etchrlab approached me 1 year after that. When Jan and Simon reached out, my first word were like, "Are you kidding me?" I explained how crazy it would be to revive this project, but they were game for it. The next thing you know, I was in China looking for a suitable manufacturer who were willing to stick to our making process and to continue our product. And in this slide, you can see I went to China to establish a relationship with a new maker, discuss the intricate processes involved in making the cotton sketchbook. This include testing various material. And one key change was the fact that Etchrlab was a vegan-friendly company, so we had to switch all materials to vegan-friendly. We then relaunched the Signature series, and it was quite popular. With the confidence and feedback from our backers, we expanded into different formats and sizes, including a wide range of sketchbook. The Signature series is our finest, while the Perfect Sketchbook series is our next tier of high-quality sketchbook. Understanding that some of our users find price point intimidating, we look for alternative quality paper to offer more feasible entry-level cotton sketchbook, all of which are our high quality and are archival. So what makes our sketchbook different? Being an artist myself, I personally test all the paper and use this sketchbook to ensure the paper is of a certain quality and responds well to watercolor and other medium. I've also taken these books out for rigorous testing. Our sketchbook comes in different formats, sizes, and even tiers. So for those who are just starting out, they can embark on our cotton paper with our everyday series sketchbook. Last but not least, we are community focused, meaning we have been active sponsor of various sketching events for the past few years. Something that I'm very proud of to be associated with Etchrlab. Here's an overview of our entire sketchbook series, starting from the finest Signature series that featured Fabriano Artistico paper in both hot and cold press, to our Perfect Sketchbook series available in A4 and A5 landscape, and our Everyday series that comes in the largest formats and sizes that are available in both hot and cold press. We also recently introduced the square format sketchbooks. Thanks to the incredible work of Etchrlab, you can now find our sketchbook in most fine art supply stores worldwide. Our products are definitely available on Blake, Jason's, and Amazon.com. In Malaysia, you can find them at Layout online store. I'm super thankful for all your support in keeping the sketchbook alive. All this has only been possible due to the positive online reviews and various influencers like James Gurney, Steve Mitchell, and Theo, also known as Paka, for giving our product some airtime and reviews when we desperately needed it. We're happy to be continued sponsor and supporters of various sketching events, and we hope that with your support we can continue this mission down the road. So this was a presentation that night, and I thank everybody for listening in and supporting our sketchbook.